This is the Continuity Engine demonstration for installing Continuity Engine on your production server. This is part one of a couple parts that we will do. So this is the installation on your production server. Then you will see a couple extra videos that you can reference after this that will allow you to build out a cluster for HA, DR, and also tertiary. So this is the beginning part. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to log into our engine management service. Now what we're going to do is going to select our server from our inventory. Now what I have here is I have the engine management service is talking to a vCenter. So you can configure that in settings, and you can configure your vCenter to a connection for Continuity Engine. And you can do that by clicking configure. And you can put in the URL to the vCenter server along with your username and password. It validates your permissions to make sure that you have the right permissions to do these operations. And you hit the next button and it will set you up and register this with Continuity Engine. Now what we're going to do, so let's go back to our inventory. The inventory should be able to show you all of the available data centers within a virtual environment. In this case, this vCenter itself. So I have our Austin and our Kansas City data center. Notice that the hosts are changing, so we can see the different VMs on each one of these hosts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to deploy Continuity Engine onto my test server here. So I'm going to go to click on Protect. And I can actually initiate it here, or if I can go back to the dashboard, I can initiate it here also. So you have two areas in which you can actually start the installation process. So if I go back to our test server here, I'm going to click on Protect. And then what I'm going to do is, since we've already selected it from our virtual machine inventory, I'm just going to put the local administrator account in to remotely access this. And it's going to go through a validation step. So it's about a 22-point inspection, if you will, to ensure that Continuity Engine is ready for deployment. Once it gets to the end of the validation step, it'll give us a report on all of the different actions that it took during the inspection process. And it has three different levels of reporting. So it'll show you the errors, which there are none on this one. You can have, it'll actually show you warnings. And then the other will be the informational stuff. So these are all of the things that it passed. If there's anything in particular that it needs to tell you about the deployments, it will tell you here. Now, there may be some things that will come up as warnings that will allow you to just mark them and then move on to the deployment. So you have the capability of doing that also. And if there's an error message, that's a hard stop. So you have to go back and fix those, but it's very intelligent. It will tell you exactly what you need to do in order to fix these so that your installation process will complete. Now, if you go back in the background and make sure that the VM is ready for this installation or fix the issues that come up in the errors, you don't have to restart this wizard again. You can just go into retry and it will start the validation process again. So it'll just go right back from the beginning and check all of those, and then when it's done, we can hit the next button. It will give us a list of all of the IP addresses there. These are the ones that we're going to filter, which are going to be the public IP addresses. So we may have 1, we may have 10, but we can tell Continuity Engine which ones to make sure that are offline on the passive nodes while they are passive. We hit the next button, and then it just basically confirms that that is the selected IP address for the public IP address for that server. And then we hit the finish button. And notice at the bottom, it says deploy primary server started. And notice also at the top of the screen, we actually have a task that's running. And we can, if we click on it here, it also tells us that there's a progress, there's actually a task running. So we can monitor the progression of the installation process of Continuity Engine. And it'll go through a couple of different steps. It'll install Continuity Engine by first copying the kit over to the server using those credentials remotely. Then it will unpack that kit and do the installation along with a discovery process that looks at the server to see if there are any applications that we have native plugins for. It will then discover those applications. It will then install the appropriate plugins. And then it goes into a process where it actually configures Continuity Engine. It installs the scope data collector service, which is an extra piece of Continuity Engine that our professional services team uses to do advanced planning, and also it's also used by our support organization to be able to do triage work when you have problems with the target server. Then it adds it to the protected servers list. And once that's completed, we now have a system that is fully operational with Continuity Engine. What's nice about this process is it's silent. It happens in the background. The end users do not see this happening. And so once it's done, you have Continuity Engine deployed. You are now ready for your deployment wizard that allow you to do either HA, DR, or tertiary. So once it's there, you'll see that Continuity Engine will show that the passive nodes are not available yet. And so once we're done, actually you can see a status here that says that there's additional information that needs to be done. So when we click on that server, notice that there is no secondary server yet or passive node. That means you got to go through the actual installation wizard to configure and extend your cluster. So that will be the next video that you will have, is one for HA, one for DR, and one for tertiary. This completes the video for the installation on your production server.